I'm going to try to keep my comments short so we can get to as many questions from the folks that are out there. This is a great turnout. So thank you both to the Placer County Central Committee as well as the Auburn Democratic Club for putting this on. And I do hope to get up there and hope we can do something in person so I can meet all of you as well. I'll just give you a quick thumbnail of my background. I'm son of immigrants. My parents immigrated from India in the 1950s. Landed in California. Um, I'm a lifelong Californian. My mom was a public school teacher in Norwalk for 35 years, third and fourth grade. Father was an engineer. I'm a product of California's public schools, kindergarten through 12th grade. Did a little community college and then went to UC Irvine for undergrad, Irvine for medical school. I paid $393 a quarter to go to medical school. And part of the reason why I always use that in my opening and my story is I know I did not get here by myself. This country gave my parents a chance. I had a chance to go to great public schools, and there was this promise of higher education in California that said if you had the desire and the talent, cost wasn't going to be an issue. Trained in internal medicine, got married. My wife is also a physician. We moved up to the Sacramento area in 1995, so we've been in the Sacramento area for 30 years. Practiced medicine, then was medical director of the 5 Mercy Healthcare Sacramento hospitals. So very interested in delivery system reform. Was recruited by the County of Sacramento to be medical director and chief medical officer for the county. So ran the safety net clinics. At that time, there were about 225,000 uninsured residents of Sacramento County. So did a lot, trying to get coverage to those folks, but also getting the 4 health systems to work together to address community issues. Then was recruited over to UC Davis as the Dean of Admissions at UC Davis's medical school. So this was a chance to give back to that next generation of student, again, where I started from, to teach and train the next generation of doctors. Got involved in Barack Obama's campaign pretty early on in 2007. He got elected, and I had this crazy notion of running for Congress. I knew he was going to work on healthcare. Most folks thought it was a wild idea, but got out there, ran really hard, came very close in 2010. It was not a great year to be a Democrat running. We were the second closest race in the country, but we lost to Dan Lundgren. Ran again in 2012. Slightly better district, but it was about an R+3 district. Ran really hard, got elected in 2012 in one of the closest races in the country, and then had some pretty close re-elections in 2014 and 2016. Since that point, we've actually been able to make the district safer. And then with redistricting, my last election, we won by about 16 or 17 percentage points. With Donald Trump coming back into the White House in 2024, we realized, there was just one thing that we could do. We had to win the House majority again. We did it in 2018. I was part of the team that put that campaign together, and they brought me back to help orchestrate what the campaigns would look like, having run and won some of the toughest races. When Donald Trump went to Texas and said, hey, Greg Abbott, I want you to give me 5 seats, we didn't hesitate as California Democrats. We actually came together as a delegation, met with the state legislature, also talked to Governor Newsom and said, we've got to fight back. I'm in favor of independent redistricting commissions, but right now, this is not a fair fight. This is a gutter fight, and we've got to fight Donald Trump to a standstill. So we willingly gave up our district. I gave up my district to go from what it was a D+13 district to 2 D+6 districts, creating the new CA3 and CA6 districts. We knew Kevin Kiley wanted to run in the CA3 district, so that's part of the reason why I chose that district. Kevin can't beat me there, and obviously we've just seen him drop out of that race. That district, 60% I've represented at one time or another. It gives Folsom back to me, and Folsom's a district that we were able to turn blue over time. 2 great candidates, Kermit Jones and Jessica Morse. We're not able to beat Kiley there. We'll win Folsom again, and and that I look forward to getting to know the new parts of the district. Part of the reason for choosing CA3 also is because of the importance of rural healthcare. The healthcare system in this country is collapsing. No place faster than rural America. And with Trump's ugly bill, HR 1, and the Medicaid cuts that are coming, the Medi-Cal cuts in California, you are going to see rural healthcare collapse. So that's part of the reason for doing this. Also to understand better the issues of wildfire mitigation and these new parts of the Sacramento region that are growing and are super important. So again, it allows me to continue doing the work I've been doing in Sacramento County, but it also allows me now to engage in new parts of the region. So that's a little bit about who I am. Certainly happy to answer any questions. My main committees, senior member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, have jurisdiction over Asia and the Pacific, and then also a member of the Select Committee on Intelligence. So a lot of what I do right now is, how do we hold Trump in check? How do we keep relations around the world? But also, how do we prevent engagement in wars like Trump's, what I would say is an illegal invasion in Venezuela? We're also monitoring what he's doing outside of Iran as well. So again, happy to answer any questions. Nick, I will pass it back over to you and you'll facilitate questions.
All right. Thank you, Congressman Bera. All right, we'll start with Chris. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your digital hand or type into the chat. If you could direct your questions, if you see Barbara Smith in the chat to the co-host, please direct your questions to Barbara Smith in the chat if that's how you would like. But we'll start with Chris, and I'll ask you to unmute.
Yeah, I put my question in the chat as well. But Rep. Barrett, you have consistently voted for aid to Israel. In your tenure, it's over $30 billion that you supported in aid to Israel. I'd like to know why, given the laundry list of items and needs we have in the 3rd Congressional District in Sacramento, why you continued and probably will continue to vote for aid to Israel. And explain your vote, and then if you could say, will you continue to vote to send more funds to Israel if you're reelected?
Sure. I have always supported Israel, and I continue to support a Jewish state of Israel. I do not support Benjamin Netanyahu's actions and how they've engaged this war in Gaza. Obviously, what happened on October 7th was heinous. The Hamas attacks and so forth, war attacks of terror. That said, everything after October 7th, the loss of innocent life, the humanitarian crisis, etc. I don't know how I would vote if there's additional funding that comes up for Israel. Part of that is because Benjamin Netanyahu is still the person who's prosecuting this war. I have voted again. I don't deny that I voted to support Israel. I continue to support a Jewish state of Israel, but I also have always consistently supported a two-state solution. That's increasingly difficult right now. We're seeing what's happening on the West Bank. I visited with Palestinian leaders, have also been to Hebron and the West Bank. Again, under Netanyahu's leadership, I'm not sure that how I would vote in terms of additional funding. Again, but I will stand with, I do support a Jewish state of Israel.
All right. We'll move into the next question. So Ryan, I'm going to ask you to mute.
Hello. Students with disabilities in our district say IEP meetings are harming their mental health, and some have expressed thoughts of self-harm. What is your plan to improve the special education system so it protects students' dignity and well-being?
Yeah, so the biggest threat right now is Trump's dismantling of the Department of Education and special education funding. That's something that I've consistently voted for. Obviously, we need to continue to make sure all students have the same access to education, the same funds, and the same support. So that's something that I would continue, that I voted for multiple times in the past, would continue to vote for. And again, I do think part of the challenge is Trump's dismantling of the Department of Education, which is taking us backwards.
Okay. Terry, please unmute.
Thank you, Congressman Bera, and thank you for attending this forum. My question is specific to the Auburn rural community and the rural Nevada County. And I believe in your opening statement, you indicated that you are going to address our issues, especially on healthcare insurance affordability, water resources, especially during drought periods, and also supporting our Office of Emergency Services during our wildfire season period. So, my question to you is uh, what legislation have you supported that would support our rural community, or what can you federally do for our rural community based upon what I just stated?
So a couple things. I mean, my style is I first have to actually come up there and listen to your elected officials, understand those issues. I spent 2 weeks ago, spent a day up at Barton Hospital and Tahoe Forest Hospital up there. I've met with some of the Nevada County elected officials and others. I've got to listen and empower your local elected to say, here's the things that we need for our community. Then my job as a federal representative is to try to go out and get those resources. On the broader scale, we've got to do better to mitigate forest fires. I've talked to some of the candidates that are running for insurance commissioner to get their ideas of how we address the insurance crisis. We're lucky to have SMUD, the Sacramento Municipal Utility District in Sacramento County, but many of the folks in El Dorado, Nevada, elsewhere have PG&E. So how do we address the cost of utilities as well? That's something we're starting to dive into. We just started the a rural utilities caucus to address some of these investor-owned utilities as well. So again, I'm not going to say here's what Placer County or Nevada County needs. My style is going to be to come sit with the elected officials up there, the people who live up there, to say, okay, how do we best manage water up here? How do we listen? Again, I think I've gotten to know Jessica Morris, who knows more about wildfire mitigation than I'm ever going to know. I know healthcare. I would try to create these advisory groups of folks to say, okay, how should we address this? What should we do to address insurance crisis? And again, my job as a federal elected is to try to get those resources, and if there is legislative fixes, to support those pieces of legislation.
All right. Christine, can you unmute?
Hi, Bera. This is Christine Johnson. I have a million questions, but I'm going to just stick to one of the top ones right now across the country, which is immigration. And I just came back from Minneapolis, where I used to own a business and I did hire immigrants. What do you see as the solution? Because let's face it, Obama deported way more people than this current program is.
Yeah. So first off, what ICE is doing right now is un-American. What they're doing, in terms of covering their faces, not identifying themselves, just picking up folks is not something that we can tolerate at this point. So a couple of things that we really have to do right now is reform ICE. And that's something that's going to happen in the near term, because right now, again, I expect most Democrats to continue to hold the line on funding for ICE and seeing what happens there. Longer term, though, we have to fix the immigration system. We came pretty close in 2020. We want to bring, modernize what the farm worker force looks like. We want to protect dreamers. We also know that there are a number of our friends and neighbors that are not threats. They should have legal rights. Sacramento County, which I currently represent, has the largest number of Afghan refugees in the country. These are folks that served side by side with our men and women. We ought to protect their rights as well. And again, right now they're terrified. We also should look at what does a legal immigration system look like. So if we want to protect our southern border, we should actually fix the legal immigration system so more folks have the ability to apply and get through the system in a faster way.
Well, I guess the key point that I want to make as a former employer,
Christine, we need to move on. So
is
thank
the
you.
role of
Christine, we need to
employers.
move on. Thank you. All right, Chad. Please unmute.
Thank you, Congressman Bera. As a physician, you have often stated that your medical oath to do no harm guides your policy. And just earlier, you said rural healthcare is collapsing. However, you have consistently declined to co-sponsor the Medicare for All Act. So how can you reconcile your medical background with a legislative record that continues to protect the profit-driven private insurance industry instead of universal single-payer coverage?
Thanks, Chad. So what I would do is I wouldn't actually put everyone into the Medicare system. I would go to universal coverage, though. I would create basic healthcare for every American. We can go into how you might do that, but you could create a basic policy for a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old, and an 80-year-old, and you could actually provide that coverage. That would give everyone basic coverage. I would pay for that through the tax system. And then if folks wanted to buy additional coverage, that's up to them. That's their disposable income. But at least every American ought to have basic healthcare coverage. I'd create a basic formula of medications. I would cover preventive coverages. And then I would actually look at the 20% of folks that actually have real chronic illnesses. So diabetics, hypertensives, folks with cancer that we don't do a great job managing. I would pour more resources into better managing their disease. And again, those are the real cost drivers. The 80% that are relatively healthy, that essentially think about health insurance as insurance. That's not where the costs are coming from. We've got to do a better job providing access, care, and coverage for the 20%. But again, I would start by making sure everyone has basic healthcare coverage.
All right. We've got a little less than 5 minutes for questions before we start wrapping up. So Erica, can you please unmute?
Yeah, hi, Dr. Bera.
Hi.
So I spoke with Matt, your Deputy Chief of Staff, at the pre-endorsement conference in Roseville last month, and I brought up your vote to censure Al Green, and he said, but Al Green still endorsed you. I worked on the Hill and found that strange, so I called his office and then campaigned, and they said Al Green holds no ill will but didn't endorse you. Do you have a response to that?
That's correct. Al Green and I are friends. Al Green doesn't want to publicly endorse anyone right now, so he didn't endorse me. He still supports me, and we're friends.
All right, Barbara, are there any questions in chat? And just a reminder, if anyone is putting questions in chat, please send them to Barbara and please keep them short.
There are a lot of questions in the chat. I have asked numerous people to join the queue because I don't know if we'll have time to get to all of these questions.
All right.
What I will do is I'm going to copy down the chat, and so we can certainly relay those questions to the staff of the different candidate representatives here, but we may not get to all those questions tonight.
All right. We'll just keep moving along with the hands that are raised. Chris, can you please unmute?
Unmute. Thank you. This is Chris Richardson, the Green Party candidate for District 3. And I was wondering why you had not heard about bioremediation for the Superfund site that we currently live in Gold River, where we've been monitored for decades and still we haven't got a solution. And bioremediation has been done for 40 years very successfully in reducing and eliminating chlorinated hydrocarbons, which is what is contaminating our groundwater.
What's your question, Chris?
I was asking why we hadn't done bioremediation yet for the groundwater contamination.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm assuming you're referring a lot to the old Aerojet Rocketdyne site. That is a Superfund site. We've continued. Aerojet Rocketdyne's been sold off, but we've continued to protect and work with the EPA to make sure it's going to be 100 years of remediating a lot of that water and the groundwater and the contamination that exists there. So we'll continue to look at that. As newer technologies come out and ways to moderate that. I just don't want to. I want to make sure that Aerojet Rocketdyne and the obligations to clean that groundwater will continue into the future. So that's how we've approached that issue.
All right. I'll ask Dory to unmute. And this will be the final question, unfortunately.
Hi, Congressman Bera.
Hi.
You missed the pre-endorsement conference in Elk Grove that I went to because you were headed to Venezuela with the congressional contingent. You weren't able to get into Venezuela. What happened there?
So nobody's allowed into Venezuela just yet. Yeah, we do have some operatives there, but I got proximity to Venezuela. I'm on the intelligence committee, so was able to meet with our operatives in the area, get briefed on it. I also, again, feel like Venezuela is a very tenuous situation. I do not want to see boots on the ground. I do not want to see us get involved in a conflict like this. I think President Trump's actions here without the authorization of Congress or consultation of Congress were ill-advised and illegal. We continue to hold that view, and we will continue to push the president on that. That said, we are where we are, and it is going to require the countries in the region working with the United States to try to solve this issue and try to keep peace and ultimately get democracy. So that is part of my job as a member of Congress, is to go down there as a member of the Intelligence Committee, is to gather the information that we need to make the best decisions. Because right now, we do not feel like the president is being forthright with us.
That's an understatement. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. With that, we will move on to your final remarks, Congressman Bera. I'll give you 2 minutes, and then thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Again, obviously, we live in a perilous time right now. We've got a rogue president who is going to increasingly be irrational. The number one thing we can do right now is to get the House majority. We're on track to get the majority. Again, we need to try to get this to a 10, 15, 20 seat majority. That's why we did Prop 50. That's why, certainly split my district into 2 districts. I think with Kevin Kiley making his decisions, we take CA3 off the playing field. We won't have to spend any money here. We win CA6. We've taken a lot of the vulnerable Democrats in California off the playing field. So now we can go on offense. And I think if we're smart, we can get to perhaps a 15 seat, maybe a 20 seat majority. I'm not going to promise that we can get the U.S. Senate, but with the erraticness of President Trump, it is a possibility. And then everything we do after that juncture has to be about winning the White House in 2029. This president is going to do everything he can to cheat his way to, preventing us from winning the midterms, but also to keeping power. When he says he wants to nationalize elections, believe he wants to nationalize elections. He can't beat us fair and square. He's going to try to cheat his way to this, and we have to be very diligent and pay close attention. And that's what this is all about right now, is about defeating Donald Trump.
So, hello, everyone. I'm Chris Bennett. I'm a People First Progressive and Disabled Army veteran running to represent the 3rd District to bring empathy, moral clarity, and accountability to Congress. I come from a long line of military veterans, and I'm the oldest brother of 11 kids with 9 younger siblings and 1 older sister that I don't like to count. Growing up, I lived in 2 countries, 4 U.S. states, and 1 U.S. territory before I turned 18, and I learned that everywhere is home to someone, and people are just people. I wanted to be an architect as a kid, and when I was getting ready for school in 6th grade, my tío Ramirito called from Puerto Rico and told me to turn on the news. And I watched the 2nd plane hit the World Trade Center, so I gave up on being an architect and decided to follow in my parents' footsteps instead. I graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point with a degree in computer science and commissioned in the U.S. Army as an artillery officer in 2013 when I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies. After artillery school in Oklahoma, and by the way, if you see a 580 area code, that's probably me, so please answer. I served for 2 years overseas where I got activated first by progressive politics when Bernie Sanders ran for president the first time. He made me think about answers to questions I had never even thought to answer, like why do we have student debt and medical bankruptcy? Why do we have homeless people and billionaires with more money than they could ever hope to spend? And why do we have people working full-time jobs that still can't make ends meet? I was raised in a home where the only media was conservative talk radio with Rush Limbaugh in the car and Fox News at home at night. But I was also taught to be a critical thinker, to love my neighbor as myself. And as the oldest brother, it was my job to take care of others. So everything Bernie said made a lot of sense to me, and I've only grown since then. When the Army created the cyber warfare branch, I was one of the first officers accepted into the new Cyber Corps, and I did defensive cyberspace operations from 2016 until getting out as a captain in 2018. Afterwards, I moved to California and worked in healthcare IT at Kaiser Permanente and Sutter Health for 5 years. While working full-time, I earned a Master of Business Administration from UC Berkeley, where I learned about business and economics. Now, I've led teams in each of my roles, and I was focused on serving and improving my community, and that's what I'm going to bring to Congress. I'm running to fight for everyday people, not billionaires, not lobbyists, and not genocidal foreign countries. That's why I refuse to take corporate, lobbyist, or billionaire money. I decided to run last year when I saw masked ICE agents snatching students off the street for exercising their First Amendment speech to protest Israel's genocide in Gaza. I took my oath to the Constitution seriously, and as a student of history, I knew it wouldn't stop there. As we've seen with the dozens of immigrants that have been killed in ICE custody and the 3 American citizens, all millennials like me, who've been gunned down in the streets by masked federal agents in the last few months alone for trying to protect their neighbors. As your representative, I'm fighting for a future where every single person in the district has all of their basic needs, like food, healthcare, and housing, where no one goes bankrupt from medical debt, where we have enough hospitals and healthcare workers for everyone to get the care they need, no matter how far they live from a big city, where everyone who wants one can get a good paying federal job supporting infrastructure, conservation, green energy, and social services, where companies can't just destroy the environment and get away with a tiny fine after causing us to lose our homes to fires and floods. I'm fighting for a future where young people can feel hope again and our elders can rest after a job well done. And I'm doing it by showing up, listening, and meeting people where they are rather than attacking them for where they're not. Now, I'm part of multiple grassroots movements to take back our power from the likes of the Epstein billionaires and make our government work for all of us. But Donald Trump is one of the most destructive forces we have ever seen. And while I will sign on to articles of impeachment on day one in Congress, I'm not going to lie and tell you that he's the only disease we're facing as a country. I believe that he is just a symptom of the policies that have been supported for decades by both parties in Congress, like giving up on stopping monopolies, like allowing private companies to profit from denying health insurance coverage to us, like starting endless, unjust forever wars and doing regime change in foreign countries to protect private business interests. I believe that rather than hurting people abroad, we should be using our resources to help people here at home. And that's what I will fight for as your representative. So in terms of some of the policies I support, I want to build more affordable housing with public financing of options for low and middle income units and public homeowners insurance that's funded by the biggest polluters that covers everything from fires to floods. I want to pass single payer universal health care. And I also want to rein in big pharma companies, like ending direct to patient advertising, capping profits on drugs that received any taxpayer funding, and also just making it so they can't kill us with drugs like OxyContin and then get away with nothing but a minor fine. I want to enshrine reproductive and LGBTQ+ rights into the Constitution once and for all, so that they can't keep using them as a way to attack people to distract us from what they're actually doing to steal from us. I want to defend the VA and Social Security and sustain Medicaid until we have Medicare for all. I want to fight for disability justice, like ending forced psychiatry and making government systems easier to use for people with disabilities. I want to impeach, convict, remove, and imprison every single person who has violated our Constitution. Speaking of, I want to abolish ICE and create humane immigration policy that helps us address our aging demographic crisis while ending the ability of the ultra wealthy to blame Black and brown people every time they tank the economy. I want to end support for genocide and war crimes so we can be the beacon of justice and hope we always claim that we've been. I want to stop war profiteering and make it so troops can do their jobs without living in black mold infested barracks while private defense contractors charge $1,000 for a screw, can't pass an audit, and buy off our politicians so they start more wars. I want to fully fund and staff our schools, end student loan debt once and for all, and make public universities and trade schools free to students as an investment in our future. And I want to break up the monopolies, tax the billionaires out of existence, get money out of politics, overturn Citizens United, and pass democratic reforms to make sure that nothing like this can ever happen again. So those are my big policy platform items. That's where I come from and what I stand for, and I would love to answer your questions.
All right. First up, we have Charlie Riley. Please unmute.
Hey, Chris, it's hard to have anything that you said not ring beautiful. Totally. I had one thing I heard you say that I just wanted to ask about, and that is you talked about wanting to make things good here at home. How do you see the United States as far as being a global citizen? Should we be trying to recover our global citizenship? And how do you address what about U.S. aid? Was that a good thing or a bad thing? Should we try to recover what we lost there, or was it a good use of our resources and money to feed starving kids? And I'll let you finish the rest of that.
So obviously USAID has been used by the CIA in many cases, but a lot of the things that they were doing were really amazing because diseases like HIV and AIDS, they don't care about borders. And when we have the ability to treat things and make it so children can live good lives, even in foreign countries, I think that's a good thing. Now, I feel like we are sort of on the precipice of the collapse of the American empire because the rest of the world has learned that a single person getting into power can basically destroy all of our diplomacy. We've alienated all of our allies. And the very big real threat that we're facing right now is that the rest of the world may move away from us as the global reserve currency. And when that happens, we're going to be subject to the exact same economic forces as everyone else. So I do think that we need to rebuild our membership on the global stage. But in order to do that, we need to amend the Constitution and claw back all of the powers that Congress has basically completely abdicated to the president. And we also need to make sure that one person can't have this kind of control ever again, and that our policies can't just be overwritten by a mad king. I hope that answers your question.
All right. Richard, please unmute.
Yes, hello, Richard Lentz here. I'm curious, I like what you have said about breaking up monopolies. And there's a sickness in our country, as you are aware of. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That's not just a phrase. It really is happening, and it's backed up with data and statistics. What kind of things can you do to reverse that trend? What would you do?
Yeah, so I think one big thing is that, as we have given up on antitrust regulation, and I at one point kind of worked in this field, we've seen that basically every single industry has been consolidated down to like 3 or 4 companies. And what people could have told you in the past was that the best way to stop monopolies is to prevent them from forming in the first place. So what I want to do is actually pass legislation to increase antitrust enforcement once again, and to go back to a time where, like we saw during the Gilded Age, everything was getting worse. The rich got richer, the poor got poorer. But we actually have more income and wealth inequality now than we did back then. So the way that we solved those problems was by having a labor movement and by antitrust enforcement. And that's what we need to go back to. But more importantly, we also need to get money out of politics, because as these people accumulated wealth and power, they've used that power to basically buy off politicians. Like, it's so blatant, the bribes that we're seeing right now, where Amazon paid like $40 million for a Melania Trump documentary that no one watched. Like that's as blatant as you can get as far as bribes go. So we need to actually enforce the Constitution, and there are so many things that we have to make happen. But I also think that we need to really relook at our minimum wage. I graduated from high school in 2008, and the federal minimum wage has not changed since then. I support an inflation-adjusted livable minimum wage because the minimum wage was always supposed to be something that people could basically support a family off of with just one job working 40 hours a week. When it comes to these monopolies, we know that there's just not nearly enough competition anymore. New businesses can't start, small businesses go out of business. And we also see that the strategy for startups is not to bring a good product to market, it's to corner some niche and then get bought by one of the big five monopolies. So too big to fail is too big to exist, in my opinion. And we need to make sure that our agencies are actually able to do antitrust regulation once again.
Thank you.
Nick, Nick, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Chris. Kind of related to your last question and answer here, and being that you're sort of a young guy like me, so to speak, there are many who say to fix Congress, we need to apply some term limits. So I'm curious, would you vote yes on a bill if you were in the House to introduce term limits for the House and or Senate? And that kind of applies to all the candidates, but definitely wanted to give that to you.
Yeah, I mean, I do support term limits throughout our entire government, honestly, especially for the Supreme Court. I do feel like we need to address money in politics, obviously, when it comes to term limits, because right now it's easy to find someone who is willing to be unscrupulous and corrupt, but it's hard to find someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC. But I do feel like 20 years should definitely be the maximum that anyone can serve at this point.
Patricia, please unmute.
Hi, thank you for taking questions. I would
So
like to know.
Can you speak up a little louder, Patricia?
Sure. I would like to know what you think is the greatest threat to preserving and protecting our democracy and what you would propose to keep us safe in that area.
Biggest threat to our democracy. I mean, honestly, it's the way that both of our political parties have been bought by corporate interests ever since the 90s, because we know from history that fascism doesn't mind when working with businesses. And we've seen that in real time, where it feels like the Democrats at the national level are almost the same as Republicans in a lot of key ways. They send our money and weapons to foreign countries to do war crimes, and they tell us that the best that we can do for health insurance is subsidizing private health insurers. I think that we just need to go back to actually having way more representatives so that we don't have like a single person representing more people in a single district than some states have. And we really need to pass proportional representation, honestly. Now, I'm kind of a nerd about some of this stuff, but a lot of people don't know that we have the oldest constitutional republic in the world, and we're kind of the victims of our own success. Now, when the founders wrote the Constitution, proportional representation hadn't been invented yet. And that's sort of one of the problems that we're facing right now. Everything's really boiled down to a false binary where it's red versus blue or Republican versus Democrat. But humans are way more complex than that. So money out of politics, proportional representation, and that will bring us much closer in line to basically all of the civilized democracies around the world that we are kind of wishing we were a little bit more like these days.
All right, Monty, please unmute.
Hi, Chris. This is Monty, and we met here in Auburn. And my question is directed toward your approach on education, or more precisely, the lack of education in history. Groups such as Moms for Liberty, or I remember learning about what we did great in history and the bad things the mistakes our country made. Now they're not teaching them about the bad things that happened, and now they're witnessing it firsthand with this administration. What's your approach to repairing that devastation toward education?
Gotcha. Yeah. So, I mean, our education system has been under attack for more than 50 years now. I believe it was one of Nixon's advisors who said the most dangerous thing to billionaires and, the owners of these giant corporations is an educated workforce. And so the Heritage Foundation under Ronald Reagan basically fought to dismantle education. And then George Bush did similar things when he came up with the No Child Left Behind Act, which basically forced teachers to stop being able to teach students where they are and help them grow as students where they needed learning, and instead force them to train people to a test. So our education system has been broken and under attack for a very long time. But I think that we need to sort of rebuild it, and we need to rebuild it better. Someone I spoke to a month or two ago said something that was really profound to me, and it was that if we're not investing in our education and we're not investing in our kids, then we're not investing in anything. So we need to fully fund and staff our schools. What one positive thing that Donald Trump has proven to us is that there was money to pay people more, as we've seen with the ICE Gestapo agents having more money than the Marine Corps. So we always could have paid our teachers, and that's what we need to do. We need to make it so that people who want to educate and inspire young people can actually afford to do so. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. We need to basically definitely get it out of the Labor Department because that's kind of a weird situation. And we also need to stop allowing all of the people that are most diametrically opposed to a government agency to be in charge of that government agency, which means that we need the Senate to do their jobs when it comes to confirmations.
Thank you.
We've got about 5 minutes left for questions. Chris, please unmute.
Okay, very good. I'm sorry you lost somebody in 9/11. Unfortunately, this was used as an excuse for us to really rampage through the Middle East and generate 83 million refugees that flooded into Europe. And, it's just a shame that we turned it into a bloody flag to ruin other countries. We need to learn to start working with other countries rather than fighting them and trying to get this imperialism that we're currently pursuing stopped, because it's hurting the world as well as ourselves. We cannot fight another world war for more than a week, and we're bankrupt, literally.
Chris, do you have a question?
No, that's. But he had mentioned that he had lost someone, and this was a driver for a lot of his work that he's done, and that's good.
Right. Thank you,
yes.
Chris. We have to keep moving on.
Okay.
Let's see. Susan, please unmute.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. I appreciate it. I have a simple question that is going to be hard to answer, and it is, being that you're on the more progressive side of the aisle, do you have any thoughts or strategies of how to reach across the aisle if you're elected, and how you would come to compromise with people with differing views?
Sure. So I think when it comes down to it, most people feel unrepresented by either party, whether Republicans or Democrats. And a lot of Republicans have sort of bought into the culture war things, but they're struggling and suffering the exact same way that Democrats and independents are. People are working multiple jobs. They still can't make ends meet. They are seeing that their towns are dying and there's just not enough jobs to go around. So one big thing for me is, even though I dislike Donald Trump because I think he's a disgusting human being, I don't make it the point to attack him and say he's the only problem that we're facing, right? In my mind, what we need to do as people who want to see things get better is talk to people, understand what reality they're living in, and then focus on our common ground. Now, when it comes to being in office, for me, the big thing is I am only willing to compromise with people that are operating in good faith. Like if someone is trying to say, you have to compromise with me by choosing no genocide or some genocide, and then they think that a little bit of genocide is the middle ground. I'm not going to compromise in that way. And I'm also not going to compromise when it comes to selling people's human rights under the bus. But if we agree on the outcome that we're trying to achieve, then I'm more than happy to compromise when it comes to the ways to get there, as long as it's based on empirical reality and not alternative facts.
We have time for one more question. So is it Kaushik? Please unmute.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for running. Today, many independents who aren't deeply ideological, but they are often skeptical, tired of politics, and very unsure that changing course is worth the risk. You are a new candidate. How do you go convince these people to move off the sidelines and support a candidate like you and take a chance so that there is a course correction done in the country? What's your approach?
Sure. So I think the big thing is that a lot of people have left the Democratic Party and also the Republican Party over the years because it feels like neither represents us. So for me, I am focused on what will help humanity, what will give young people hope for the future again, what will actually make our lives better. And I'm not doing the thing that Democrats have been failing at for so long, where I negotiate myself down to whatever I think I can compromise to before anyone else has even opened their mouths. I talk about these are the things that we actually need to fix our broken system. These are the ways that we need to help people to make their lives better. And at the end of the day, like, people just want to know that their representative is a real human being that they can actually get in touch with. So that's why I have Tuesday chats every night or every Tuesday that people can come on and ask whatever they want to talk about. I'm never going to dodge in-person town halls like so many representatives do. And I'm going to be available because at the end of the day, a representative is supposed to serve you, not the other way around. So I think a lot of people, they're really desperate for someone who will give them hope again and who's not going to give them like word salad BS answers and dodge questions because they're taking money from the people that demand them to be on the wrong side of history.
Thank you so much, Chris. At this time, we're going to end the questions. If you still have questions, please send them to Barbara Smith in the chat, include your email, and we'll pass those along to the to Chris's campaign. With that, Chris, I'll give you 2 minutes to give your closing remarks. So take it away.
So am I good?
Yep.
Okay. So I just want to say thank you so much for spending time with us this evening and for your thoughtful questions. I will absolutely answer every single one that we get that we didn't get a chance to, because I hate personally when I go to a reps meeting and then they say they'll answer the questions and never hear back from them again. But if you're furious about the terrors of ICE and the cruelty of DOJ, if you're angry about the attacks on people of color, reproductive freedom, and LGBTQ+ rights, if you're against the fascist authoritarian takeover of our country, if you're tired of getting the runaround or word salad answers to very simple yes or no questions, if you want to see a new generation of leaders in Congress who fights for everyday people rather than health insurance companies or billionaires, then please help me get to Congress. Consider giving your time, treasure, or talent to support our campaign. Join our WhatsApp community so you can get real-time updates and be part of Team Bennett, where you can volunteer or even help develop our platform to better represent you. Check out our campaign website, bennettforca.com. That's BENNETTFORCA.com, and learn more about the platform we're building with inputs directly from the community. And of course, follow us on social media at BennettForCA and see what we're doing and out and about in the district. So I just want to end with, we may not agree on every single issue, but I want you to know that I'm always on the side of the people, and I'll do everything I can to bring back the American dream so we can have peaceful and prosperous lives again. Thank you so much for your time. And once again, I'm Chris Bennett.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, everybody, for sticking through, staying a little bit late tonight to hear all of us speak about this really important race. I want to start out actually with some really great news. We learned this morning that the Jane Fonda Climate PAC has endorsed my campaign, and I cannot say how honored and excited I am to be recognized as a climate leader here in the state and certainly in this campaign. So let me just jump in. Some of you have heard me talk already, but I want to make sure you all get to hear. I got into this race back in April. to fight Kevin Kiley and the fascism we could see was coming with Trump 2.0. I live in this district. This is my home. I've been protecting it and governing here for the last 10 years, living here for the last 20 years. So it was a natural move for me. Prop 50 passed. This became a D+10 district, and 3 more people jumped into the race. 2 of them jumped over from District 6. So as of today on this Zoom stage, I'm the only candidate in this race who lives in this district, who works in this district, and whose kids went to school in this district. And I find that's important because I am rooted here with my community. I would also, as an aside, with March Women's History Month coming up, would be the first ever woman representative in this district. So let me tell you a bit about my background. I'm a lifelong public servant. Public service is in my blood. I spent 20 years with the US EPA, protecting our water and air, and specifically our hazardous waste sites, and ensuring that corporations were held accountable for what they were doing there. I spent 10 years with the State Department of Water Resources, protecting the ecosystems around our waters, rivers, lakes, and groundwater, which is incredibly important in the state as well. So I've got this deep environmental background, this service ethic, and I've loved everything I've done. The last 9 years, in 2016, I decided to run for county supervisor here in Nevada County. I actually was asked to run. I flipped a seat from red to blue, and I won the next 2 elections handily. So I've been governing here for the last 9 years. I'm super proud that I've been able to deliver real solutions on the ground in a politically split board on important things like our homelessness issues, affordable housing, wildfire mitigation, and so many that I can't even name. And I'm most especially proud that I was able, as a progressive on a politically split board, to get a Pride resolution, a Pride Month resolution passed, and a climate change resolution. That is no small feat. And this is actually one of the reasons I believe we need more rural folks, people who know the rural area. We need more people who've been governing at the city and county levels, because they understand how the legislation that gets made at the federal level actually gets implemented at the local level. And let me tell you, I have not had a congressperson come and talk to me about what I've learned in a very long time, so that they could learn from that and put that in their legislation. A lot of talk about that, but doesn't happen very often. I've been endorsed by 25 other county supervisors up and down the state, urban, suburban, and rural. They've worked with me. They know that I listen, I learn, I'm persistent, and that I can get things done. And specifically, I led a working group for the state with other county officials to address our wildfire insurance crisis. We came up with resolution and solutions. We took it to Congress and to Sacramento. I think we're going to see some bills at the state level to take up some of our suggestions. And at the national level, I was asked to come testify on that. So we don't need to set up a new working group on that. You just need to elect me, because I can start working on that on day one. I also want to emphasize, of course, that I am a grassroots campaign, not taking any corporate PAC money, not taking any dark money, not taking any APAC money. Now, that means I have to raise money far and wide, and I have a viable campaign. Although I want to end Citizens United and I've signed the Unrigged Pledge, I do have more than 7,000 donations from 4,000 individual donors, and my average donation is $57. So this is a totally grassroots campaign and has a populist appeal. I want to make sure you all understand that I have been a lifelong progressive. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself to illustrate that. I grew up in a household of teachers. Also, my father was a high school teacher and he belonged to the union. And I've been a union household growing up. And as a public servant, I've been in unions when I was not in management. I support all the union actions we need to take in Congress, especially the PRO Act, to give unions much more power so they can get back to increasing the living wage for our working people. I have a group of lovely LGBTQ plus folks in my family whom I love dearly, and protecting them and supporting them and celebrating them has been a personal value for a very long time. I will always stand up in Congress for that community to do everything they need to be protected, and that bias does not come into dealing with issues, economic issues, and so on in their lives. I am the proud wife of the son of a Mexican immigrant, and my children, stepchildren, and children are multi-ethnic. Looking at the issues affecting our immigrant community, the lack of access, the lack of dignity, the way they're being targeted and terrorized, and the need for massive immigration reform is a family value. We've been involved with this for a long time. When I get to Congress, I am absolutely determined to stop what is going on. I am calling for us to abolish ICE, to claw back the $75 billion they've just given them, that they want to give them more. We need to impeach Noam. We need to establish oversight. And I've got to do a full, complete immigration system reform so that there is enough room and ability for us to allow immigrants to come into this country through proper channels. This can all be done. You already heard about my environmental credibility, my credentials. I've been an environmentalist all my life. I could love to talk lots more about that offline with anyone who wants to. But I will be able to lead on facing climate change and investing in a green energy economy on day one as well. I'm very interested in centering youth right now. I'm incredibly depressed about the future our young people have in this country, and that's one of the main reasons I'm fighting for my kids, for my grandchild, for all the young people. I have committed to start a leadership council similar to the one Mike Thompson has set up, so that high school students can engage in better civic education, have easier access to Congress, and have a place they can build up their political cred without having to go through the party system. So that's one of my most exciting things that I'm pledging to do. So it should be no surprise that when I'm in Congress, my key issues are going to be to make this economy work for working people. That means repealing the billionaire tax cuts, enacting a wealth tax, digging in, spending much more money on affordable housing, investing in universal childcare, forgiving student debt, investing in public schools, and so on. These are the bricks and mortar of a working economy for working people throughout this country who have been neglected for far too long. Another priority is obviously going to be healthcare, the issue that can make or break people's living, people being able to stay in their homes right now. Day one, I will sign on to the Medicare for All bill. I want to codify reproductive health rights so that women never have to go through this ridiculous fight again. And I want to help our suburban and urban and rural hospitals, but particularly the rural ones who've been hanging by a thread for so long. And let me add on to this issue because this feels very personal right now. Like so many of you, I've recently had to deal with a health crisis. A week and a half ago, my 86-year-old mother was diagnosed with a large cancerous tumor. Now, it was a terrible week trying to find out what was going on. We were well cared for in a community hospital by incredible healthcare service people from A to Z who were all overworked and underpaid. At the end of the week, we got the great news that her cancer was easily treatable with a pill as an outpatient. Yay! Very exciting. Heard that the pill was expensive. As of today, my mom was told that her medication is being denied. Then we did some more work and somebody said it was overturned. Before I got on the call tonight, it was overturned again. So we're in for the fight of our lives. Healthcare is a human right. What's happening in our healthcare system is awful. It is completely broken. And if we put people in Congress with medical backgrounds, doctors, nurses, medical administrators who are not going to attack this medical crisis or who haven't for the last decade, then we need to put people in who will. There is no excuse for us not having handled this before now. So I am deeply committed to this issue. Finally, I am going to be fighting back against this horrific administration. I already told you we're calling for abolishing ICE, impeaching, holding people accountable for their illegal and unconstitutional actions. We need to reform the Supreme Court. We need term limits. We need to codify ethics regulations, and we're going to need to expand it as well. And the final issue that really has got me on fire lately, and I'm going to be speaking out about it more and louder until something happens, is the issue of children in detention. Now, like on other things, Republicans owning this crisis, but Democrats have been part of creating this crisis, and they have done not nearly enough, soon enough, or fast enough. I expect every one of our congresspeople, Republican and Democrats alike, to be working their butt off to stop the detention of children for any reason whatsoever. These detention centers are functioning like prisons. They do not have potable water. They do not have good food, and there are no educational resources. We are creating PTSD in an entire generation of children. It's inexcusable. And if congresspeople right now are not fighting this, they should find another job. These are critical times. So I'll end with this. This is a national emergency. We are in an authoritarian regime now. The fight has to be big and tough and hard. There's no room for incrementalism and nibbling around the edges. Our house is on fire. What we need is someone who's going to get in there and fight the fire and then invest in a better future for our young people. What we don't need are more strongly worded letters with people saying seems to be a crisis and someone should do something about it. That is unacceptable. So I am excited to be in this race. I am persistent. I'm not going to get pushed out. And trust me, people have tried to do that. But I know my community. I love my community. And I believe I'm the best fit for this district. So I'd be excited and honored to have your vote. And I'm really looking forward to your questions. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Our first question will be from Melody. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
hi. Hi, Heidi. I just wanted to say that I've been following the Jeffrey Epstein arrest for almost the last 10 years. It physically sickens me that Donald Trump is in his position. I need to know what you plan on doing to get him removed, get him impeached, but not only that, how do you plan to hold him accountable and Pam Bondi and the Justice Department accountable?
Thank you for that question. What's happened with the Epstein files is inexcusable and abhorrent. The victims of these men, of Trump, of Ghislaine, of all the men who've been involved with this, have been denied justice for all these years, as you know, and they're continuing to be used as they're being used by not being given justice. This is, as a woman, I have to say, I do believe we need more women in Congress as well, because a lot of women aren't going to stand for this. What's happened to these women and these girls was rape. There were girls raped for years on end, and multiple years and years of men who perpetrated this or knew about it or heard about it and did nothing. They are liable. They are complicit. We're seeing in Europe right now, as they're starting to open up the files, that men who've been named in those files are having to resign from their jobs. The public is not going to stand for it. That needs to happen here too. We must prosecute all the men and women who've been involved with this. It's going to take years, but it must be done. We have to stop the ability of these wealthy and well-connected men from using and abusing children for their sick desires and getting away with it. This has to be stopped now so it cannot happen again.
Thank you.
All right. Ryan, please unmute.
Hi, Heidi. Education rights are civil rights. As a member of Congress, what will you do to ensure students with disabilities can actually access those rights without families and them being traumatized by the system meant to protect them?
Thanks, Ryan. I recall you asked that question earlier about specifically about the IEP. So I'd have to learn a little bit more about what's going on with these IEPs. I had my son go through an IEP once a long time ago. So I know those are tricky. But overall, I can tell you we must invest in public education and services for the disabled. Public school system and all the services surrounding them, including for disabled children, are so amazingly underfunded that we really need to. Public schools are a big deal for me too. We need to invest in our children, providing the best that we can. For the disabled adults, those services are also severely underfunded. Again, as my work on a county supervisor, we partner all the time with nonprofits throughout our community to help all of our vulnerable communities, and disabled are one of them. So there's so much that can be done by investing and partnering with organizations who know what's needed in that space.
All right, Emily, please unmute.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, Heidi. Thank you for speaking. I'm a voter located in the Arden Arcade area. You highlighted your residency in the historic area of the 3rd District as being a benefit to your campaign. However, as someone not in that area, I'd like to know how you would advocate for those of us new to the 3rd District. What are your plans to become involved in the new areas to District 3?
Thanks so much for asking that. And I welcome having the Arden Arcade and so many other communities around Sacramento being part of this district. I've spent a lot of time meeting with the clubs and organizations there. I've been to celebrations in Rosemont and Fair Oaks. I've been getting out there as much as I can and seeking input from those of you who live there. I do know that there is much in common across urban, suburban, and rural areas, specifically the progressive issues that I'm championing, the affordability crisis, public schools and safety in schools, healthcare. These are issues that are across the board. And as I've already said, I will be advocating for them. Anything more specific than that, I do want to be meeting with folks out there. And I would appreciate you emailing my campaign and letting me know if you want to meet with me or suggesting areas I can show up and talk with people. I'll be spending much more time now that we're past this endorsement issue out in the Sacramento area, and I look forward to meeting with many of you.
We have a little less than 5 minutes left for questions. Erica, please unmute.
Hi, Heidi. I heard you say on Saturday at another club that Congressman Jared Huffman, who had endorsed you, pulled his endorsement that you'd already earned. And I think others should know what the establishment is doing to progressives. Can you share that story again?
Sure. When I started, actually, there's been a lot that's happened. When I started in running in this race in the old District 3, obviously I sought endorsement from a number of great organizations that I cared about, as well as from congressional members who I admired and respected. And Jared Huffman was one of them as a progressive leader in Congress. Also someone who's very familiar with the natural resources, which was a big issue in the old district. He did endorse me, which I was proud of. The only thing I can say is that after this pre-endorsement conference, so for those who don't know, my campaign was responsible for ensuring that the delegates who have a vote for endorsement were able to actually take a vote and decide who they wanted to endorse, who they wanted the state Democratic Party to endorse. Without us doing that work, Bera would have automatically been endorsed by the state. We successfully pulled that endorsement, and in the subsequent endorsement vote, he was denied the endorsement by the party, the only sitting congressman in the state of California that happened to. The next day, I got private texts and voicemails and messages from some folks I've been working with in Washington. And using the same language, I was told, number one, Jared Huffman was pulling his endorsement. And another congressperson, their senator, had said that they would no longer be working with me. I can only assume that the danger of this endorsement being pulled created somewhat of concern, and that leadership or someone decided that they needed to provide more support to Mr. Bera and deny me the support that I'd been given earlier. I will say I find this really disappointing. I've worked for a long time within the Democratic Party, fighting to get rural issues heard, fighting to get women's issues heard, and fighting to get progressives elected within the party. And I became completely disillusioned with that. So this is part and parcel of my desire to get in there and fight against the disaster that we have now, which is fully owned by the Republicans, but by the fact that the Democrats themselves have become feckless, have become too complicit and complacent, have gathered themselves of protecting themselves, making it more difficult for other local folks to get in to Congress, even though we need their voices. And so I find that very disappointing. But let me tell you something. I'm a persister. No one is pushing me out of this race as long as people want me to keep running. And so I will keep asking you for your support and asking you if you need me to do something different or fight for you in a different way. And I'm open to learning as well.
We have time for one more question. Chris, please unmute.
Well, thank you very much. I can be reached at rcr@worldvista.org, and I am running for Congress as well. That's
Chris, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I applaud the directions that you're going, and they're very similar to mine. I've been in service with the government in various ways, helping with setting up, military hospitals around the world with the VA's solution.
Please ask your question, Chris.
Yes. I would like to contact you after this talk and see if we can find some common ground.
Sure.
I have your address, so thank you.
Great, and thanks for your service.
Actually, we'll have Beck ask the final question. And let's see, actually, can we mute everyone? I'm getting feedback. Daniel, are you able to mute everyone? And Heidi, if you can unmute real quick.
Yep, done.
Beck, please ask your question.
As a young American and specifically as a college student, I think a lot of people in my generation are fearing that the guardrails have already come off and we're barreling into a pretty uncertain future. What would be your first step as a congresswoman to protect the rights of young Americans and their ability to protest and believe what they believe in?
Thanks for that, and thanks for what you're doing up there, Beck. Obviously, that's one of the most immediate concerns we have. First of all, with ICE's actions in our communities, going after immigrants and threatening peaceful protesters like you and others who are out there. That has to be stopped. Again, that means abolishing ICE. That means pulling back the funding, all of it, so we can stop it immediately. It also means holding the perpetrators of murder and the chaos that they're on purpose creating, holding them accountable. So there would need to be arrests. There needs to be people going to jail. And then we're going to have to establish an oversight facility to deal with this. So I've been following Ro Khanna, who's doing some really great work in Congress right now, actually taking action. And he's got a plan that includes abolishing ICE and looking at oversight to make sure that there are people actually holding the people accountable who are overstepping their authority. Now, obviously, we have the courts who are supposed to be tracking that, and they have been partially holding up, but they aren't enough anymore, and they can't act fast enough. So that would be probably the first thing I would need to do in Congress. And I'm fortunate that there are some great people there who are working on this, and I would collaborate with them immediately.
All right. Thank you so much, Heidi. At this time, we'll stop taking questions. If you do have additional questions, please put them in the chat to Barbara Smith, and please include your email, and we will send those along to Heidi's campaign. With that, Heidi, I'll give you 2 minutes to give your final thoughts and final statement. So take it away when you're ready.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much for sitting on this call this late evening. Thanks for bringing us all together. I'm going to start calling for a request for a debate. I think we should be able to talk to each other and ask each other hard questions, right? The more information you have out there about all of us, the better. So please talk to me, email me. I have some evolving views on things. I am really digging into what is going on in this country right now. And while I do that, I know that we need to be incredibly bold. We need to take action immediately. That's something you will get from me. I have a track record. It's important to send someone to Congress in this district who knows this district, at least most of it, and is able and willing to learn about the rest of it and is welcoming to the rest of it. We cannot simply put novices in there, and we cannot keep sending the same people back and expecting something different. I am rooted in this area. I'm knowledgeable about government. I've been serving at the local level, which is right now the only and most trusted part of government, because we meet our constituents every single day. We can't escape our decisions. We have to account for them, justify them, and we have to change our minds if people come in a group and demand that they do that. So I'm a coalition builder and I'm a fighter, and I would be honored to be your congresswoman in this district. And I welcome your questions and an ongoing conversation with any and all of you. So thank you again for the time. Appreciate it very much.